me at 100 yards away just by the way I walked. If she saw a video of me, she'd be like, yeah, that's him. I just can't imagine when you're looking at something like that. I have 4 children, and figuring out it's one of your children that has done something like this, and then having the call the law enforcement to turn in your own child. And it is going to be, and this is not like it's going to be a small thing, but they did what was right, and I think it ended something that in this area I didn't see it as a threat. As you talked about, it was one shot and it ended. There was no multiple shots fired into the crowd or anything. So I think the police did understand that this was a targeted assassination. But what you also don't want, though, is if you corner somebody, if his picture got out and people recognized him and they knew where he was at, you don't want someone to take it into their own hands. You don't want that person to be in a barricade situation where law enforcement has to do it. So the family member turned him in. Like, I would be surprised, like, he just went home. Where was he actually arrested at? Right. That's really what I want to know. Did he tell his parents he was on a camping trip and was out in the woods, or was he in a hotel, or did he in fact go back home and was living in a house that he normally lived in and didn't realize that someone was going to call away and police were going to call. And then it happened in the middle of the night, which is good. I think an arrest in the middle of the night is really the best way to do it. You don't have as much public out there. When you do an arrest like that, it's very isolated. If you can get the person in that location, depending on how it's done. And then again, the safety of the public is always what you're thinking about when you do arrests like this. So it's developing to the point now. You have multiple teams working on different stuff now. I have a source saying that, okay, they're getting ready to do physical search warrants. So they're identifying everywhere he's lived in the last probably year, even if he was staying with a friend, if he was living somewhere temporarily, all those are going to be identified. You're going to write out search warrants for every one of those. A team's going to go to each site. And then you have a team getting ready if he's in fact talking. There's a team supplying information to the people interviewing him. And then there's a team now starting to look at all his social media. Those search warrants are going in for his social media, his emails and all that. As you identify them, you're interviewing his family members. You're talking to them to get timelines, to get friends, to get all other names of people that you're going to talk to, because now as I said, the investigation is exploding to the point where you have people to talk to, electronics to look at. You may have to get his physical phone. You may have to fly that back to Quantico to unlock if he doesn't give you the code. All those are going in. You have the prosecutors, the local DA, and the federal prosecutors talking about the case. They're making sure everything is being done. So anything that you get, any results of search warrants or interrogations, is going to stand up in court. It's going to be valid if you have to put it in front of a jury or a judge.
Rob, quickly, can I ask you some of those details that you just laid out there? Questions like, where was he when he was arrested? Did he go home? What other information we have that law enforcement may already have, right? Like the motive most likely has not been identified at this point. Maybe some of that information that's still going to come from searching his digital exhaust, that term that you keep using, or searching the home. But some of that information that they do already have, how much of that do you think we'll hear in this update?
I don't know if you're going to hear a bunch of that. I think you're going to hear the overall progress of how he was identified. You probably hear a little bit about the arrest. All those other things are in motion in the background. There's only so much information that you're going to get up to the bosses. The bosses know all this is being done. They're trying to get the overview that they want. I think the most important thing is if his family member turned him in, what was his cell phone number? Because once you get his cell phone number, that is immediate. You can get results of every place he has been, every tower he has touched, every location he's been at. So even if the family member doesn't know where he's been in the last couple of days, if his phone was with him, those results are going to ID places that you may want to start looking at. If he had stayed at a motel on route back to the house the one night, you're going to see the results of that cellular data telling you where he's been if the phone was with him. So I think that was probably one of the most important things after they ID'd him, was to get his actual phone number so they can start running those cellular data requests.
All right, Rob D'Amico, thank you so much. I mean, giving us just so much insight in what we expect is happening right now and happening in the hours ahead. Let's go back to the President of the United States. It was about an hour and a half ago where this news broke on the set of Fox and Friends, a television show on Fox News, where the president revealed that they had a suspect in custody.
Essentially, somebody that was very close to him turned him in. I'm always subject to be corrected, but you know, I'm just giving you, based on what I'm hearing, they'll give you a much more active. I just heard about it 5 minutes before I walked in. A father got involved, namely his father, and said, we got to go in, and they, so I understand it, and again, subject to change, but you know, the facts are the facts. We have the person that we think is the person we're looking for.
That, of course, there was the President of the United States, as Christine just mentioned this morning, making this announcement. That is information NBC News has now also confirmed with our sources, that a suspect is in custody. And in fact, we now know that he is 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. Our Kelly O'Donnell brought us that information just a moment ago, and I want to go back to her now. Kelly, tell us at this point, we have a name, we have an age. I believe we know that the suspect is from Utah or living in Utah. Tell us what else we know at this point, now that we have more information about who exactly this person is.
Well, as we set the scene here for what has been an extraordinary series of events, including the fact that this information was first made public by the President of the United States, that's extraordinarily unusual. The President, of course, likes to describe himself as the chief law enforcement officer in the land. But the victim here, Charlie Kirk, a personal friend of the President, closely tied to his political life. And the President said he had just been informed prior to going on this TV program where he was scheduled to appear. That strikes me because, in part, from our reporting and sources, we know the suspect's been in custody for a number of hours, which suggests to me there was not a knock on the door in the middle of the night at Trump Tower to alert the president that there was a suspect in custody. We'll report that out to see what happens. But he described it as something he had just learned. The suspect himself is described as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, a resident of Utah. As we understand it, there was a connection between the public outreach that law enforcement did by providing photos, then subsequent video, better quality photos. Those are key elements of this, because we are told that there was, and the president also affirmed this, that there was a connection made by someone close to the person of interest here, and that allowed them to have this breakthrough. Now, what happens next? All the investigative channels open up. There will be a search of any of his electronics. They will look for things that could connect him for any motivations, any conduct. For example, what would tie him to this crime? You would look for things like Charlie Kirk's events are published well in advance. He had a plan for a multi-city tour of college campuses. Was there any interest shown by the suspect in identifying information about where Charlie Kirk was going to be? Are there any links to him? Is there any history of communicating about Charlie Kirk as a public figure, political ideology, all of that? We don't know any motive at this point. We don't know the specifics about gun ownership. That is an avenue that federal law enforcement can now pursue. They had the weapon in custody. That was made public prior to this arrest. And so they are able to look for what was the ownership track. Had this gun ever been used in any unlawful conduct? Anything like that that might fill in a picture. A 22-year-old who, as authorities had said, blended in easily in the college environment. There'll be so much for people of that generation where they live online. So searching for all of his social media, all of his communications, all of his text messages, all of that is now fertile ground for investigators. When we have the news conference, which is somewhat delayed, but that may be a part of some of the investigative steps, again, because this is a suspect living and in custody. We expect a process toward charges and a trial. So often these investigations happen after a suspect either takes their own life or is killed in a gun battle or those kinds of things. A living suspect means there's an enormous amount of pressure on authorities at the state, local, and federal level to dot all the I's, cross all the T's. The suspect has rights and needs a defense, and so proceeding carefully will be important. The fact gathering that would go on now. Expect search warrants to be executed at his place of residence, if he had a job, certainly for his possessions like electronic tools, all of those kinds of things. What it does do is it brings to a close the fear and ache in the Utah community about, is there a dangerous person at large? Authorities will, I'm sure, give some sense that the investigation, that they feel confidence. We will expect to hear what they say about the level of confidence they have in this suspect and in how he was brought into their custody, held by state officials in Utah. At this point, there is no apparent federal crime involved. Murder is a state offense, and until they have more investigative tools that allow them to expand any potential charges, we're not even at the charging point now. This is a person held in custody, being detained, the potential for interrogation. If interrogation is even possible, he could invoke his Fifth Amendment rights if he were to so choose to do that. So lots of questions, but many new avenues opening up. But as the president described it, someone close to Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old Utah resident, was key to breaking this case.
All right,
Savannah, Christine.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for all of that excellent information as we wait for this press conference to begin.
Stay with us and bring us anything else new you have. I want to bring in NBC News correspondent Aaron Gilchrist. We've been showing you in the corner of your screen right now that FBI update coming soon. Aaron is in that room awaiting that update. Aaron, as Kelly just laid out, there's of course so many questions, but some that could potentially be answered in the short term by authorities here. The level of confidence for one of them, as Kelly pointed out, that this is the guy they were looking for. How he was taken into custody, what the details were of what happened overnight, and what they're doing to push this forward. What search warrants are being executed? What are you listening for in this update coming from the FBI shortly?
Yeah, I think you've laid out exactly the sorts of things that people are curious about at this point. I will say that this briefing was originally scheduled for 9 a.m. Eastern. That was then pushed back to about 9:30. Here it is now on the East Coast, 9:42, and it has not begun yet. We were told by someone who came into the room, a law enforcement official came into the room to tell us that they were being delayed. He wasn't sure when this briefing is going to start. And as Kelly alluded to, I think a lot of that may be related to making sure that there is clear messaging that can be communicated to the public about what transpired in the overnight hours. The video you're looking at here was released very late last night in a briefing that was held by law enforcement officials here. And so in between then and the president making his statement somewhere in the 8 o'clock hour Eastern time this morning, this person came into police custody. As Kelly told us from law enforcement sources that she's been able to talk to, as well as others on our team, there was someone who saw some of the images, whether it was the video or the photos that were released, saw some of those images and was able to say, I know this guy, and then turn him in is what it seems to be the case at this point. And so the questions we have, well, were law enforcement officials at that point able to get any sort of statement from him? Has he been talking? Or, as Kelly referenced, did he invoke his Fifth Amendment right not to say anything? And so that's something that we're going to be looking to get an answer to once the briefing does start here. I would expect, as is typically the case, that law enforcement will say there are a lot of things they can't talk about at this point in the process because there is a prosecution to come, and they won't want to reveal much more than what they can, and if it may impact adversely the prosecution that is to come. But I do think that so much of the imagery that we've seen up until this point and the information that we have about someone being in custody up until this point is something that is helpful for this community. This is Utah Valley University is the largest, according to its website, in the state of Utah. There's a 40,000 plus population that attends this university. We know there were 3,000 people in that courtyard listening to Charlie Kirk when that shot was fired from the rooftop behind the crowd as they were sitting in this amphitheater, sort of a bowl as it was described to me, and we have been able to see it. Those folks obviously went home traumatized, and there was a bit of fear in the community about the fact that this person was still out there, despite the fact that law enforcement officials have said that they believe this was a targeted attack, that Charlie Kirk was the only person who this suspect intended to shoot. The community knew that a suspect was still out there. And I can tell you, being here on campus, in this building that is just adjacent to where the shooting happened, when you walked around, you could see that there were strollers that had been left behind. There were scooters that had been left behind. We were able to go into a classroom in this building. We're in the science building where the briefing is going to be happening. We were able to go into a classroom on the ground floor here on the lowest level of the building and see where students had barricaded themselves in a classroom. They pushed tables up against the door, tried to tie the door shut in some cases. There was one classroom where we saw people that left backpacks and notebooks and cell phones and tablets. And I think that speaks to the level of fear that existed here when students in those classrooms thought that there was an active shooter, someone with a gun on the scene here. And so the announcement that we expect to get from law enforcement this morning that someone has been arrested, it is the person that they believe is responsible for the shooting, will come, I think, Christine and Savannah, as a relief to some of the people who are students here and who live in the broader community.
Aaron Gilchrist, we know you'll be standing by for that update for us. Thanks for your reporting so far. Stick with us.
Yeah, again, we're waiting for that FBI update there from Utah. You can see in the bottom right hand of your screen. Well, now we've pulled it full, but you can see that we're waiting for that to get underway. And so in the meantime, we're still talking about this investigation and just this breaking news of the morning of a suspect in custody. I want to go back to retired FBI agent Rob D'Amico. I'm really curious, Rob, about the firearm. We know that it was a rifle, a bolt-action rifle. We know it was found, I guess, in the woods or somewhere, away from the scene after the event. And we see these pictures and some of this video of him. How did he get it on the roof and get off the roof? I mean, talk to me about the firearm and the fact the suspect apparently was walking around Central Campus with a gun in this big event.
Yeah, what does it tell you about the weapon?
So I'm looking at the video that we saw of him in the neighborhood beforehand where he had a slight limp because the videos that they put out, they released yesterday from the ones that you're showing now.
Yeah.
I don't know where that weapon would be because that backpack is too close to, is too small to hold that weapon. I mean, you have some very high-tech weapons that can be folded down and such, but you're looking at thousands of dollars for those type of guns. This one, I'm trying to figure out if he had it down his back and part of the rifle was down his leg, and that's why he was limping. The still photos don't show him like that. I'm trying to look at how his legs bend. I myself, haven't been a sniper, practiced on getting sniper rifles into hotel rooms and other places covertly, and it's tough because they're so long. So I'm trying to look at these photos of him walking up to the roof, and I don't see it. I don't really see him walking or having a statute that would suggest that, which may indicate he may have put that rifle on the roof a couple of days prior, a day prior, knowing that he was going to go up there and have to walk through a big crowd to get there and didn't want that rifle to be noticed. So that's kind of where I'm starting to think he may have done. And again, they may have video of him that they're looking at from a day prior if they grab that, putting that rifle up there. But then he leaves with it, and it looks like it's covered in some type of towel or some type of device that's covering that rifle. He even jumps off the roof with it, which again is not that easy. And then for some reason he discards it in the woods. I think maybe at that point, whatever he was going to on his escape plan, thought having that rifle, even if it was covered, would be a hindrance to him getting away without someone spotting him. And he may have looked at a location. He may have known that that rifle was going to be recovered. And at that point, he may have wiped it down, trying to take his fingerprints and DNA off that before he left it. Because again, this was a well-planned assassination, even for a 22-year-old. When you look at it, that he did this. He got away, even if for a couple of days. So he may known enough. You watch CSI, you know kind of what fingerprints and DNA can do. He may have wiped that rifle down and then left it in the woods, knowing that the police would eventually recover it. But you can still get it. A lot of times we talked about earlier, even if he wiped the rifle down, did he know enough that was a bolt action rifle? But I think it was magazine fed, which meant it had a magazine of maybe 5 rounds. And in order to strip each round off the magazine, you have to action the bolt. Did he wipe the rounds down? Because when you load a magazine like that, you handle the round and you put it in. And there's many times that we get thumbprints or fingerprints off of small devices that the criminals don't think of. I remember in Iraq, they had recovered a rear view mirror that had the subject's thumbprint because he adjusted the rear view mirror. The vehicle exploded. They recovered the rear view mirror and found one thumbprint. And when we captured him about 3 years later, we ID'd him that way. So again, he may have touched other things in that rifle he may not known to wipe down. And that's what they're looking for, all those small things. With today's, again, the ability to get to watch TV on CSI and all these other things, you really understand how things are done, but criminals still make mistakes. And him being young, I think, again, that shows a point where he may not have been this well-trained person. He may have seen enough, known enough to do it, but now when the federal authorities come in, you have investigators and you have people that have done this for decades that are just going to really kind of tear things apart.
Rob, of course, the number one question has been who did this. Now that we seemingly have an answer to that, we potentially have an answer to that with someone in custody. I think the question pretty quickly on people's minds is, why does someone do this? Walk us through the investigation into a motive. How the term that you've used, I've never heard it before. I think it's a good one. His digital exhaust. What that does in terms of searching for a motive. The people who were close to him, who called in and ultimately turned him in, how they could play into that. What's an investigation into motive look like?
Motive's going to be talking to people around him, maybe not parents, not children don't tell their parents everything, as we all know. But he has friends, and maybe the friends weren't part of this, but he talked about it, and he had certain opinions and views. He may have gone to groups. All those interviews that they're going to do, every time you talk to someone, you're like, well, who else can I talk to that may know something? And they'll give you a name, and then you start going down that road. And then the same thing on the electronic side, where you get a hold of his email. And it may not be something in the email, but you know how you have to verify your email to join certain groups and Reddit and all these other things. And you see an email from, say, Reddit, and then you have a username on Reddit, and then you do a search warrant for Reddit, and you openly search Reddit for that username, and you start seeing things that he posted, kind of what he thought maybe anonymously, that start coming back to that Reddit post. And then on Reddit, you find out he referenced something else, or then you find another email verifying that he downloaded an app. If he had an Apple iPhone, you're going to look at all the chat or all the applications he downloaded, and he maybe had Discord, he maybe had Telegram and all these other things. So again, when you're looking at this physical search of the phone, some of those only can be done when you have the device. And that's why it's going to be key that they get the device, they put it in a Faraday bag so that no electronics can go in or out of that phone. There's some people that are very technical that have it where they can remotely delete things off a phone, but it still has to have connection to cellular or Bluetooth. So you put it in a Faraday bag so no electronics can get to that device. And then you fly it back to FBI lab in Quantico. And again, I've delivered hard drives that we've gotten overseas, going blue lights and sirens up 95 from Fort Bragg with a hard drive that was recovered, say, in Syria, to get it to the lab, to get those folks, because they're waiting, literally waiting for it. And they have a team that is going to now start to crack all those devices. Same thing with search warrants. So you're on his computer and you're looking at his Google search history. You're looking at what IP is in the house. Did he have VPNs that would maybe mask an IP? All those are going into the cyber side of things and how they know to look at it. And again, the federal authorities have unbelievable cyber investigators where you just can't hide what you think you can hide. Again, you may think you're anonymous on Telegram or Discord or Reddit. You're not. your IP and all the other identifying things with that are there are going to come together. And it's a combination of the search warrants, getting emails and phone numbers, because again, as you know, you join something and you have to verify your phone number through a code or something like that. That may be in the text searches, and that gives you a clue that he got something that you don't understand that you're going to wind down. And then maybe he was relaying things on the dark web. Maybe he's in discussion groups there. Again, they're going to start looking all that when they start getting the physical electronics. And again, maybe he had an Apple iWatch. And again, you don't really even understand what's happening in that.
Sure.
You could actually go back on that watch and look at his heart rate when he was taking that shot, if he has an Apple iWatch or some other device.
Rob, just quickly, you know, we don't know if he had any accomplices or there was a bigger conspiracy. We just don't know any of that yet. And it's clearly, I would never speculate. But the idea of the lone wolf in your line of work, in the FBI, you know, how concerned are you about people who are radicalized by what they're reading online and they decide they take matters in their own hands on a political matter?
Oh, it's an absolutely huge problem. And we saw that before, like after, like, again, 9/11, it was a group of folks. And then ISIS, though, really started propagating the, hey, do this alone. They would get radicalized in these chat groups at night, you know, in their, as you know, the former director said, in their basement at night, looking at these chat groups, get radicalized. And ISIS knew when groups talk about things, that's how it gets discovered, and the threat gets discovered, and you start getting in front of it. But if it's just in one person's head, if they're reading these things and they're thinking about it and they want to do it, and it's all just in their head and they're not communicating it to anyone, it's really hard to get in front of and prevent. You may be able to tie things back as we look at it now after the fact, who we talked to, and you can pinpoint this month he's really started getting angry at Mr. Kirk because he saw this video, and I remember him talking about how angry he got, and you can start looking at maybe the slide that brought him down to commit a violent act like this. But it still was in his head and he wasn't communicating it to anyone. So all those are really troublesome in there. And when you have lone actors getting self-radicalized and not communicating a threat to anyone, I would, though, like the one thing that's come up in my mind, and I don't want to put suspicion on anyone, but we kept hearing how he was about to talk about mass shootings when he was shot. And people have said that. And when you look at people that are doing things for the event itself, that to me was like, wait a second, he was talking about mass shootings and he got shot. And we heard from your witnesses on the news that he was talking for 10 minutes beforehand before he was shot, sitting in the exact same location. So to me, I'm now thinking, okay, why did he take that shot at that moment? Was something coordinated? Because it was odd that that question was just asked. He made one comment about the question and then was shot. Not that I'm saying that there was a co-conspirator, but I would want to talk to the person who asked that question, and then I would look at it electronically. That is there any connection to the shooter, now that we know who the shooter is, with the person that asked the question? It may be it just happened to be a coincidence. It may be that the shooter knew he was going to be asked questions like that because he's seen other videos where they talk about mass shootings, and that he wanted to time it so that as soon as he started talking about it, that's when he took the shot. Because now I'm looking at, again, the shooter had 10 minutes beforehand of him sitting in one location and talking about things. And I think he was sitting and wasn't standing. It may have been he was standing before talking about something for 10 minutes and then sat down to take this question. But you want to start to really understand the timing of that shot, why it was taken then. Was it something in his mind that he knew he was going to talk about, or was it the question that he knew was coming? So all those things are going through my mind as an investigator, wanting to discuss. And you really want to just get to the point where you can throw it out and say, nope, the person out of that question has no connection to the shooter. It just was a coincidence, or the shooter knew
Right.
that question was going to be asked.
Yeah, and we don't even know if he could actually hear what was being said on the stage from that far away, what the mic, you know, the PA system was like. If we just don't know. That investigation clearly will show that. It's interesting to me too. You wonder how long he was up there before he took that shot. And you, I mean, I am not an expert marksman, but tell me, is that a difficult shot to take?
Yeah, Rob, we just have about a minute or less here, but tell us
So
exactly
as a
what you
sniper,
look for there.
Yeah, as a sniper, it's not a difficult shot. When you're talking about 1,000 yards into a person, and I know people who've SEALs and Special Forces guys who's taken it at, shots at a mile into a person. Those are difficult shots. 175-yard shot isn't difficult. It's a hunter type of a shot that they're used to. But again, shooting a human is not easy too. When you put a person in your scope, there may have been some difficulties on the angle and the fact that there was a tent there that may have, thrown his shot off some, but it was still a fatal shot.
Thank you, Rob.
Rob, your analysis has been so helpful this morning. We are about to join an NBC News special report as we get an FBI update on the latest of the suspect in custody.
From NBC News, this is a special report. Here's Savannah Guthrie and Craig Melvin.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. 10 a.m. on the East Coast, 7 a.m. on the West. We're following breaking news in the assassination of influential conservative activist Charlie Kirk. NBC News sources confirming a suspect is now in custody. He's been identified as Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old man from Utah.
All of this follows a massive manhunt in the wake of Wednesday's shooting in Utah. It also follows the FBI's overnight release of new images and videos of a person of interest.
In a moment, we're going to take you to Utah. Officials are about to hold a news conference. We expect to learn more about the circumstances under which this suspect was identified and brought into custody. Let's go to NBC's Morgan Chesky. And actually, it was the president himself across the street here in New York on Fox and Friends breaking this news earlier today. Morgan.
Yeah, Savannah, Craig, stunning development this morning from President Trump during that interview, saying that he had a high degree of certainty that law enforcement officials had a person in custody that they believe was, in fact, the person who fired the fatal shot, killing Charlie Kirk here on the campus of Utah Valley University. Since then, though, we have learned more details. As you mentioned, Savannah, he's been identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah, and that correlates with what we heard from law enforcement yesterday, saying that this person of interest that they shared both images of and video of appeared to be a college-aged male. That pairs with the fact that Robinson is 22 years old. According to the president, Savannah and Craig, we're also hearing that it was someone very close to Robinson who recognized him from either the images or the video and then contacted law enforcement, and that began the process of bringing him into custody. We're hoping to hear more details and gain some clarity onto how exactly that all went down here in this press conference that should begin any minute now. But it has been a fast developing investigation here with the release of the videos late last night by authorities in a press conference where FBI Director Kash Patel was in attendance. They did not take any questions at that time. They simply said, this is the individual just moments after firing the shot that killed Kirk. You can see him running on a campus rooftop. He then lowered himself and jumped off onto the ground. Officials say that they left behind a crucial trail of evidence, DNA on that rooftop ledge, a shoe print on the ground, and then a high-powered rifle in a nearby wooded area. All of that will now likely be used by investigators to hopefully or potentially be tied to Robinson now that he is in custody. One thing we have yet to hear from officials, despite calling this a politically motivated assassination, we have yet to see any particular piece of evidence that could lend itself to showing this person's state of mind or motivation, political ideology, anything of that nature. This is where this investigation is really now going to dig in to anything Robinson may have in his possession at a residence, on his phone, on a computer. And so that is where the investigation stands on that front. Now that this individual is in custody, I should point out that this campus, this community, was not put on lockdown for a long period of time because officials believe that this was a targeted attack and that they did not believe anyone else was at risk. Certainly a lot of relief in this community right now.
All right, Morgan Chesky there. Morgan, stand by. This news conference is getting underway. Let's listen in.
Director Kash Patel and Sheriff Mike Smith. We also have with us Utah DPS Commissioner Bo Mason, Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, FBI Special Agent in Charge Robert Bowles, and local and federal law enforcement partners. Following the remarks today, Governor Cox, Director Patel, and Commissioner Mason will take questions. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him. On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there's been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I will share that with you now. So the area north of Campus Drive Road where the suspect crossed over, you saw some of that in the video that we released last night, consists of a grassy area with trees on the edge of the UVU campus. Investigators discovered a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a dark-colored towel. The rifle was determined to be a Mauser Model 98 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle. The rifle had a scope mounted on top of it. Investigators noted inscriptions that had been engraved on casings found with the rifle. Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices, bulges, capital O-W-O, what's this, question mark." Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point." Up arrow symbol, right arrow and symbol, and 3 down arrow symbols. A second unfired casing read, "Oh, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow, Chow." And a third unfired casing read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." We are indebted to law enforcement across the state who's worked seamlessly together, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and our federal partners with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're grateful for everyone who worked together in such a short amount of time to find this person and to bring justice. I want to thank the public who has been so engaged, reviewing videos, helping us with sending in tips, and helping us get to this point. I want to thank the family members of Tyler Robinson who did the right thing in this case and were able to bring him into to law enforcement as well. I especially want to thank the family of Charlie Kirk, Erica, Charlie's parents, his children. I want us to be thinking of them as we bring justice in this case. They will be involved in that justice. We will be working very closely with them as we move through this process as well. This is a very sad day for our country, a terrible day for the state of Utah, but I'm grateful that at this moment we have an opportunity to bring closure to this very dark chapter in our nation's history. With that, I will now turn the microphone over to the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
Thank you, Governor. This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. Governor Cox, our partnership has been absolutely incredible these last few days. Our partnership will endure. Your state and local partners, your sheriffs, your DPS community has been unbelievably impressive in the hardest of times. And a case like this cannot be solved, cannot be brought without partnering with your state and local authorities. The FBI has a certain role to play, and we will play that role, and we will lead out for the federal government. But Governor Cox, we are so grateful for your state partnership that led out on this investigation. A little bit of the timeline. Charlie was shot at 12:23 p.m. on Wednesday. The first FBI agents arrived on scene in 16 minutes with chiefs of police at 12:39 and secured the scene. The FBI immediately launched fixed-wing assets. We utilized these assets to transport personnel, specialty technicians, hostage rescue teams. We also utilize these assets to go back and forth from the East Coast and here in Utah to transport forensic evidence and other evidence that will be analyzed and is being analyzed at our FBI laboratories in Quantico and other laboratories, including the ATF. At my direction, the FBI released the first set of FBI photos of the suspect at 10 a.m. local time on 9/11. Then, shortly thereafter, the FBI reward of $100,000 was released at 10:45 a.m. local. Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m., where at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period. And I want to highlight what Governor Cox said. This would not have been possible without you, the media, and you, the public. That's why we went so public, so fast, and we're so transparent, and we're committed to that transparency. The crime scene, just a little bit there. It is a large crime scene. State and local authorities, along with federal authorities, processed that crime scene quickly. And I even had the ability to walk through that crime scene and walk through the steps the suspect took to learn more about what was needed and what resources we needed to bear to create a full picture for the FBI and leadership back in Washington. Furthermore, thankfully to state and local partners, forensic evidence has been seized and continues to be garnered. Forensic evidence has already been evaluated at FBI laboratories in Quantico and state and local authorities here. We will continue to process evidence as we see it, as we collect it, and we will continue to deliver it to Governor Cox and his team. Last night, we had a total of approximately 7,000 leads. As of this morning, thanks to your great work, we have over 11,000 leads that were called in to the FBI. And we are running out every single lead that we can. Every one of those leads will be run out. The arrest is a testament to the dedication of good law enforcement being great and partnerships in law enforcement, which I've tried to highlight as my tenure as the director of the FBI. There is no better relationship for law enforcement than the FBI to partner with state and local authorities, and you've seen it here in these last few days. The FBI Salt Lake Field Office, along with our offices in LA, Phoenix, Denver, San Antonio, Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, our headquarters component in Quantico, all participate in the FBI. I want to express my deep gratitude to the employees of the FBI, the men and women, the evidence response team tacticians, the special operators, the agents, the support staff. You have done monumental work in historic time when the public, who had a right to demand such an expeditious solving of an investigation, the FBI answered that call diligently, critically important to our nation, and we delivered. And I'm proud to be their leader, and I'm proud to be the director of the FBI. This is a very much an ongoing investigation, as the governor said, and we will continue to work with state and local authorities to develop the investigation, to provide them the evidence they need for their ongoing prosecutions, and we will be here to answer every call they absolutely have, as long as it takes, for as long as we need to find and apprehend whatever suspects were involved in this crime. Lastly, to my friend Charlie Kirk, rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you in Valhalla.
Thank you, and good morning. I would just like to take a few minutes as the sheriff to express my gratitude for everybody who has played a part in this investigation. As you know, it's been a vast, a complicated, and a very, very fast-paced investigation. You're looking at people standing up here who are running on, if they got an hour's sleep in the last couple of days, they're probably lucky. It has been very taxing. It has been so impressive, speaking on behalf of the local law enforcement, to see the cooperation that we've seen in this type of case. Across the state, sheriffs, chiefs, our state partners have stepped up and have come to the call on anything that we needed. Our county chiefs have been phenomenal. Our Utah County Attorney, Jeff Gray, who's standing up here with us, has been phenomenal in leading us through this investigation. I would like to thank the federal government for their resources, their assets. Our local team here, our FBI team, has been extraordinary in helping us work through this and bring this person to justice. Most of all, I would like to thank the public, and specifically, I would like to thank the public who turned to prayers and who turned to positiveness for us. I would like to thank them on behalf of the law enforcement community, because we needed those prayers. That's what we needed to get through this. We needed your support, and you gave it to us. We needed your patience, and you gave it to us. And I would like to thank you for the Kirk family, because that's what they need, is your support and your prayers, and that will get us through all of this. So thank you, everybody, for everybody that have stepped up. We've had such a phenomenal response to this. Thank you.
I also want to give a special thanks to the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. Their unwavering support and their commitment to justice is shown true here. And without AG Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and the resources they brought to bear, we would not have been able to complete our mission. And I just want to say special thanks. It's an honor to be a part of the Department of Justice.
Thank you again to our incredible law enforcement team who has worked so hard. Sheriff, I got a solid 90 minutes last night, so I'm probably the most well-rested person up here. Ladies and gentlemen, I get the microphone, so I hope you'll permit me a moment just to share a few more thoughts about where we are and how we got here and maybe a little bit of where we go from here. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country. And violence is tragic everywhere. And every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Even, especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those. And specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state, and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youths. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here, and that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. I want to thank my fellow Utahns. You know, this bad stuff happens, and for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us, that somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I had hoped for, just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. And it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. No rioting. There's no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There's no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes, because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency. And I desperately call on every American, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, conservative, MAGA, all of us to please, please, please follow what Charlie taught me. I'll just conclude with words I share often from a friend and author, Yuval Levin, who was asked if he was optimistic about our country. And he said, I'm not optimistic. He said, I hate optimism. God, that sounds bad. But he said, optimism is a vice. It's this idea that good things are just going to happen. And he said, in the history of the world, good things have never just happened. He says, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful. And hope is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hope is the idea that good things are going to happen because we can make them so. I still believe in our country, and I know Charlie Kirk believed in our country. I still believe that there is more good among us than evil, and I still believe that we can change the course of history. I'm hopeful because Americans can make it so. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Please speak to whether the suspect is speaking with authorities and his demeanor, Tyler Robinson.
I cannot speak to that.
Governor, how can you interpret? Governor, how do you interpret the engravings on Casey?
Well, I will leave that up to you to interpret what those engravings mean. I think the clearest one that says "catch fascist," there's not, and by the way, that's like catch like a ball, catch this. That's I think that speaks for itself.
Governor, you talked about this level of hatred that this person expressed in dinner. Beyond that, is there anything in your view that you discovered that may have radicalized or changed him to prompt him to commit?
There's nothing more that we can share at this time.
Governor, you indicated that he had been communicating with a friend on Discord about the gun. Do you anticipate any more arrests?
We do not at this time have any information that would lead to any additional arrests.
Do you believe he acted alone?
Yes. But the investigation is ongoing.
Can you talk more about the family and what they had to say about the suspect?
Yes. So right now, Mr. Robinson has been booked into the Utah County Jail. You heard the president this morning report that he was taken into custody. That his family and a friend helped to deliver him into custody of law enforcement in Washington County. For those of you that don't know where Washington County is, it is the southwesternmost part of the state of Utah. It's about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive from here, where we are right now, and that's where he lived and where they turned him in. Please, go here.
Can you talk more about what the family is saying?
I can't share any more than what I've already shared. Yeah.
Governor, do you details on how he got back to Washington County and how the gun was obtained?
How we obtained the gun? The gun was found here. So I don't have much more details on that. We do know that he drove. We had his car here on campus, and then we had his car going south back to the St. George. It's actually the city of Washington in Washington County.
Is he talking with authorities? And did he discuss?
I'm sorry.
Did the suspect plan to carry out any?
We don't have any information that would lead us to believe that. Yes, in fact, it was just released. Yes.
Talking with authorities, and did he discuss a motive?
I can't answer that right now. Yeah, thank you. Over here.
Very eloquently about trying to reunite this country. Do you feel that this is a watershed in American history?
I absolutely believe that this is a watershed in American history. Yes. The question is, what kind of watershed? And that chapter remains to be written. Is this the end of a dark chapter in our history, or the beginning of a darker chapter in our history? Look, I mean, if you look at true political assassinations in this country of someone of this stature, this feels a lot like the late 60s. And having one so gruesomely displayed on camera in all of our hands and in all of our pockets, we are not wired as human beings biologically, historically. We have not evolved in a way that we are capable of processing those types of violent imagery. And by the way, we've seen another one with a gruesome stabbing very recently that went viral. This is not good for us. It is not good to consume. Social media is a cancer on our society right now. And I would encourage people to log off, turn off, touch grass, hug a family member, go out and do good in your community. That is happening, and it's happening organically right now. I had a friend in a small city in Utah who said, we're getting together, the Republicans and Democrats in my little town are getting together to have a discussion last night, just to find a way to find their better angels. So yes, this could be, I mean, again, you have to go back to JFK to have seen a video live of something like this happening. I wasn't born until 1975, but I know that things were really dark in the late 60s. Sorry to some of you. I know some of you were there. This is our moment. Do we escalate, or do we find an off-ramp? And again, it's a choice. It's a choice, and every one of us gets to make that choice. Two more questions right here.
Could we clarify that the release of those enhanced images at 8 p.m., the timeline that Director Patel gave us, led to the arrest at 10 p.m.? Is there a direct connection?
I cannot comment if there is a direct connection or not, but all I can say is that that through some process, the family came to know that this had happened.
One more thing, Governor. Could you just clarify the clothing issue you mentioned earlier? Was he
correct? Yes. So when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU. Last question here. Yes.
You said that the suspect was from Utah. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about where, and was he a student here at this university, and is there any history of
I don't have any information on the mental illness part. He was not a student here at UVU. He was living and had lived for a long time with his family in Washington County, in the southernmost part of our state. Thank you, everyone, for your great work in getting this information out. I would just say, process-wise, this may be important. I know many of you aren't familiar with the process in Utah. I think it's important that you understand that. Basically, we have 3 days for charging documents to be filed. A CI will be filed. We'll have more information then, more detailed information, as those charging documents are filed in preparation for a preliminary hearing. So 3 days. So we would anticipate then that early next week those charging documents will be filed. We will obviously be working. The county attorney will be working very closely with Mr. Kirk's family as those documents and decisions are prepared and made. Thanks, everyone.
All right, that was the governor of Utah, among other officials, including the FBI director, announcing that a suspect is in custody, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah. And we've learned a lot in that news conference. And while that was on, we also received the mugshot from this morning. I want to get Tom Winter in here. He's our national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent. And there was a lot of information, including how it is that authorities became aware of this person. And it sounds like someone turned him in, a member of a family. The suspect spoke to a member of family who reached out to a family friend who called the sheriff's office.
That's exactly right, Savannah, and consistent with some of the reporting we were hearing earlier this morning. And the information, according to the governor, is that this person said that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was then relayed to police. Apparently, in the course of this investigation, they were actually able to find his car and surveillance video of that. And they see him wearing one type of clothing. Then he changes into the dark clothing, the images that we've seen over the past 24 hours. The shooting happens, and then he changes back into the original set of clothing that he arrived at the university in. Well, they said that when investigators in the early hours of this morning arrived at his home, apparently he was wearing the same type of clothing that he was wearing when he arrived at the campus on the day of the shooting. On top of that, they said that there was a roommate of his who he also had been messaging, and the messages referenced the weapon specifically, referenced the fact that it was wrapped in a towel. That's something investigators have been telling us about. The fact that it was in a wooded area, and that there will also be engravings on the casings of the ammunition.
And a scope on top of the
And a scope on top of it, all consistent with the information we've been hearing for the past several days. And now the governor and investigators saying, no, in fact, it's one and the same thing.
It sounds like all but a confession to the roommate as well, although the roommate thought it was a joke, according to the investigation.
Apparently initially thought it was a joke, and now investigators think it's anything but.
Tom, let's talk a little bit more about these casings, and maybe we just try to characterize some of what the investigators claim that they have found while we try to figure out exactly what was meant by some of these casings and what was inscribed on these casings.
Sure. So top line on this is that there's a real anti-fascist sentiment that's consistent with some of the information that we learned in the press conference that apparently recently this individual, Tyler Robinson, had been talking about the fact that they had an issue with Kirk and had become more political recently, according to the information shared at the press conference. These engravings reference a whole host of things. We're still in the process going through it, but like I said, he says in one spot, "Hey, fascist!" exclamation point, catch. In other words, to catch the bullet is what is referenced. The governor clarifying that later. There were a number of unfired casing rounds, one saying, "Oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao." There was another message referencing, apparent reference to law enforcement. So, look, putting it all together, we're going to need to do a lot more research as far as the specific ideology here. But it's clear, and again, according from what the governor said, that Robinson apparently mentioned to a family member, a family friend, that Charlie Kirk was coming to the university. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. And a family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. Again, all of that coming from the governor and officials at this press conference.
We don't know whether it appears from our initial searches that there's not a criminal record here for this individual. Right. We don't know a lot about his background, but we've talked a lot about that single deadly shot that was taken from a distance of 200 yards, which would suggest some experience with firearms.
Certainly some experience with firearms. Nobody just buys this gun, sets up on the roof, and is able to conduct a shot along the lines of what people are told in military and law enforcement training, which is high center mass. And that's exactly, unfortunately, what we saw earlier this week. So I think we are asking questions if there is a military record here. We are asking questions about his background. To your point, Savannah, there's nothing that sticks out as far as a criminal record. We're able to see those generally pretty quickly, but sometimes those records could be held under seal, too. We'll want to look for that.
But, Tom, your team has been able to determine that there was a connection between this 22-year-old and the campus itself.
Yeah, apparently we have some information in that he may have attended at least one semester there, and we're going to try to get some more information on that as well, Craig. Again, though, it doesn't seem like he had any specific issue with the university. The family member talks about the fact about Charlie Kirk, this becoming more political in recent years. We did get some additional detail on the rifle. It's a Mauser Model 98 36 caliber bolt action rifle. The question I would have is, did anybody buy this for him? Could that have been an illegal purchase?
Is this like a hunt for those of us who aren't? Sure. And I confess, I don't know a lot about this kind of weaponry. Is that a hunting rifle?
It is a hunting rifle. It's the exact type of rifle that you want to use for long distance hunting, very stable to carry out a shot like that. Do want to note the governor said we do not believe that there'll be any other arrests at this time. Noted that obviously the investigation is ongoing and we should see the specific charges as early next week. Of course, there could also be federal charges here. We'll just have to see what develops over the coming days.
All right. Tom Winter, it would seem as if investigators have spent the last 24, 48 hours just using a lot of video evidence to build this timeline.
Yeah, it does seem like it's all derived from the timeline at this point and from the video. Obviously, that helps them make the case. A bit of a troubling trend out of this. You know, we saw it with Luigi Mangione, according to our reporting. The recent shooting in Minneapolis at a church there involving school children. And now Tyler Robinson, according to all the reporting we've put together here, this is now another incident where somebody's been engraving things on shell casings, really speaking to that message and people following what Mangione did.
All right. We're following this breaking news. 22-year-old suspect Tyler Robinson of Utah in custody. You can find more on our streaming channel and on NBCNews.com.
Tom Winter, thank you. Morgan Chesky, thanks as well there in Utah on the ground for us. We are going to return most of you now to the Today Show. I'm Craig Melvin alongside Savannah Guthrie, and this has been an NBC News Special Report.